My sister announced her engagement at my husband's funeral.
The service started late. It wasn't anyone's fault exactly, just one of those things where the funeral home got something mixed up with the flower delivery, and then the slideshow of photos wouldn't play. I stood there in the front row, stiff as stone, my hands locked together in my lap, watching people mill around behind me. I heard them whispering, some trying not to stare. I didn't care. I wasn't really there anyway. When you've been awake for 40 hours straight, you stop making sense of things. Your mind just does what it can. I hadn't slept since they called me about the accident. I hadn't eaten either, unless you count 3 sips of water and a bite of a cracker I didn't swallow. It was a Tuesday. I kept repeating that to myself. Just Tuesday, like any other. He was on his way to pick up a birthday cake for our son, Daniel, who was turning 8. There wasn't much left of the car, so now I sat, numb, barely registering the pastor beginning his welcome, his soft and practiced voice weaving between words like loss and celebrate. I hated that word, celebrate. My sister, Carla, arrived 10 minutes into the eulogy. She came in loud, not yelling, just with that energy she always had, like the rules didn't quite apply to her. I heard her heels click along the hardwood, saw heads turn. She wore red. Not bright red, but still. Not black. And not dark enough. She had on gold earrings that caught the light every time she tilted her head, and she was talking in full voice to someone behind her, like this was a party. I felt something inside me go rigid, but I didn't turn. I didn't see her again until the reception afterward, in the church basement. People kept coming up to me, work friends, neighbors, his old classmates, telling me how sorry they were, how they remembered this or that about him. I nodded. I thanked them. I don't remember what most of them said. My mom took Daniel home earlier, which was the only reason I hadn't completely lost it. Carla found me by the coffee table. She kissed my cheek like she hadn't seen me in years, then immediately started fussing over how exhausted I looked. No kidding, I said, pulling back. She wore that fake concerned expression she always did when she was pretending to care. Then she added, "Oh, and before I forget, we have some exciting news." I stared at her. She reached for her boyfriend's hand. I didn't even remember his name. He was tall, silent, always blinking like he'd been woken up in the middle of something. "We're engaged," she said. Loud, bright, like she was announcing it at brunch. I blinked. Thought I heard wrong. She held up her hand with a shiny oval ring on it, catching the overhead lights. I looked at her hand, then at her face. My husband had been dead 4 days, and she stood there, at his funeral, announcing her engagement. I waited for her to realize what she'd just done, to backpedal, apologize, laugh, and say it came out wrong. She didn't. She kept smiling like this was normal, like this was okay, like I should be happy for her. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I walked away. I went into the hallway and leaned against the vending machine and just stood there, breathing. Behind me, I heard someone say, "Not the time, Carla." But she just laughed. My hands were shaking. I didn't know if it was grief or rage, maybe both. It would have been easier if she were a stranger. If some oblivious guest had blurted out something inappropriate, I could have brushed it off, chalked it up to nerves or awkwardness. But this was Carla. My sister. The same girl I shared a bunk bed with for 6 years. The same one who used to steal my Halloween candy and swear she didn't. Who always managed to be louder, brighter, and more exhausting than everyone else in the room. We didn't fight exactly. We just weren't close. Not since our 20s. She moved out west after college and bounced around jobs. Marketing, event planning, some vague startup thing. While I stayed in Minnesota, settled down, became a mom, got a teaching degree. She came back for holidays sometimes, never for long. She didn't come to our wedding. Said she had food poisoning the day of her flight. I didn't even tell her right away when Mark died. It was my mom who called her. I only realized that when Carla texted me 2 hours later with, "OMG, I just heard, I'm so sorry, what can I do?" and 5 heart emojis. I didn't reply. She flew in the day after. Showed up at my door with luggage and some fancy skincare kit for Daniel. "He's too young for wrinkles," she joked. I didn't laugh. He was curled up on the couch watching Bluey. He didn't even look up. Now 4 days later, she was still in town and apparently making the funeral reception her engagement party. That night, I lay on my back in our bed, my bed, and stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. I'd finally gotten Daniel to sleep after an hour of quiet crying. He kept asking if the cake was still at the store. I told him yes, just waiting for another time. Carla had gone out. She said she needed air, but I knew she was going to get drinks. I'd overheard her on the phone making plans with a college friend who lived nearby. Something about needing a break from all the crying. The ring was all over her Instagram by the time I checked, just past midnight. A photo of her hand over a cocktail napkin that said, "She said yes," in gold script. Caption: "Life is short, say yes to love. #engaged. Blessed. Celebrate life." I didn't comment. I didn't even scroll. I just locked my phone and turned it face down on the nightstand. I thought I'd cry, but I didn't. I just lay there in the silence, wondering if I'd imagined the whole thing. In the morning, I found her in the kitchen, barefoot in one of my sweaters, pouring almond milk into her coffee like she lived there. "Morning," she said, like nothing had happened. "You should eat something." I ignored that. "What exactly did you think you were doing yesterday?" She blinked at me, too casual. "What do you mean?" "At the funeral, telling people about your engagement." "Oh." She actually had the nerve to look confused. "Well, I wasn't making a speech or anything. I just told a couple people. It kind of came up." "It didn't come up, you brought it up." She frowned, set her mug down. "Okay, well, I'm sorry if it was bad timing, but you don't get to control how I share my life." I stared at her. He was my husband, and you told people you were getting married while they were literally eating funeral cookies. Carla didn't flinch. She had this way of turning things around so fast you didn't even realize you were being blamed until 5 minutes later. It's not like I made a toast, she said. You're being really intense right now. I'm grieving. I'm allowed to be intense. She rolled her eyes. Mark wouldn't want you to be bitter. He always said you let things eat you up too much. That stopped me cold. She'd barely known him. 2 visits in 10 years, and suddenly she was quoting him like they were close? I didn't say anything. I just walked past her, out the back door, into the frozen yard. I stood there in my slippers until I couldn't feel my toes, just breathing, trying to keep the screaming inside my chest. When I came back in, she was gone. Left a note in loopy cursive on a sticky note. Going to brunch. Text if you need anything. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the blank space where her mug had been. I realized then, I didn't want her in my house. I didn't want her near Daniel. And I definitely didn't want to pretend things were fine. But I also didn't know how to tell her to leave without starting a war. The next few days were quiet, in the way an empty house can feel loud. I focused on Daniel, on his routines, his homework, making sure he ate something. Grief clung to him differently than it did to me. He asked a lot of questions in the morning, then almost none the rest of the day. He didn't cry in front of me anymore. Instead, he asked when we could have pancakes again, or why birds don't wear shoes, and if we were still going to the lake this summer. I answered the best I could. Carla stayed at a hotel after the morning we fought in the kitchen. She said it was to give me space, but I knew better. She'd posted a photo from the hotel bar 2 hours later, her and her fiancé clinking glasses, some caption about celebrating life's moments. I wanted to throw my phone into the fireplace, but I didn't confront her again. I didn't have the energy. She texted me a few times a day, thinking of you. Let me know if you need help with the house. Dinner soon? I didn't respond. Then, 3 days after the funeral, she showed up at the school where I work. I hadn't gone back yet. I was still on bereavement leave, but the secretary called me at home and said my sister was in the lobby, asking to drop something off. I drove there with Daniel in the back seat, still in his school hoodie and pajama pants. I hadn't even brushed my hair. I found Carla waiting on the front steps, wearing sunglasses and a beige trench coat, like she thought she was being photographed. I just wanted to give you this, she said, holding out a slim white envelope. What is it? She smiled. Just open it. I opened it. Inside was a card. On the front was a drawing of two champagne flutes clinking together in glittery gold. Inside, in Carla's handwriting, save the date. Carla plus Mitch, June 15th, Napa Valley. I stared at it. You're getting married in June? Well, yeah, we just figured, why wait? Life's too short, right? She said it with a softness, like it was supposed to mean something deep, like she was somehow connecting her engagement to my loss. I looked at her. You planned your wedding 3 days after my husband died? She didn't blink. We'd already been talking about it. This just pushed us forward. You know, reminded us to live. Daniel had gotten out of the car and was standing next to me now, holding my hand. Why are you doing this right now? I asked. I thought you'd want to know early, so you can plan. Flights, dress, time off work. I cut her off. I'm not going to your wedding. Her face changed. Just a flicker, but it was there. What? I'm not going. I'm not flying across the country to toast you and Mitch 3 months after burying my husband. She scoffed. You're punishing me. For what? Being happy? Daniel tugged my hand. Can we go? I nodded, turning to walk him back to the car. But Carla grabbed my arm. You know what? I'm tired of tiptoeing around you. I came here because I wanted you to be part of this. Because you're my sister. I shook her off. No. You came here to make sure I knew you were still the center of attention. She said nothing. I got Daniel into the car, climbed in and shut the door. As I pulled out of the lot, she was still standing there, card in hand, watching us leave. That night, I got an email from her. Long, dramatic, titled, Please read this with an open heart. She wrote about how grief shows up differently for everyone, how she wasn't trying to steal my moment. Her words. How she hoped I could be happy for her eventually. She ended it with, I know Mark would have wanted you to move forward, I'm just trying to do the same. Something about that sentence snapped something loose in me. The way she used his name, the way she claimed to know what he would have wanted. He barely tolerated her when she visited. The last time we saw her, he told me she made everything about herself. That was less than a year ago. I didn't write back. But I did start saving things, messages, posts, screenshots. Because for the first time, I wasn't just hurt. I was starting to see something clearer underneath it all. She wasn't just insensitive. She was intentional. The messages kept coming. Texts, emails, even a voice memo one night at 2 a.m. that I didn't listen to until morning. Carla had this way of talking that sounded like she was always mid-performance, like her emotions were rehearsed. Everything had the same tone. I love you. I want you there. I just want peace. I stopped replying entirely. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just needed the silence. I needed space to think. But even without her voice in my ear, she found other ways to get close. It started with Daniel. I found out from his teacher that Carla had stopped by school one afternoon and dropped off a gift for him. A Lego set, wrapped in shiny foil paper with a note that said, To my favorite nephew, Aunt Carla can't wait to see you this summer. He hadn't even opened it. He asked if it was okay. I told him he could keep it if he wanted. But that night, when I came back into his room to turn off the lights, I saw the box on his desk, still untouched. She talks too much, he said quietly. And she smells like candy. I didn't laugh, but I sat next to him on the edge of the bed and said, "You don't have to pretend to like anyone you don't like. Even if they're family?" I nodded. Even then. I started noticing little things. She was tagging me in posts on Facebook again. Old pictures from when we were kids, captions like "sisters forever," and "so lucky to have her support right now," even though I hadn't spoken to her in a week. Then she sent flowers to my work. No note. Just a card with a winking face and "thinking of you." My coworkers assumed it was from a student's family or something. I threw them out before I went home. And then the worst part. She called my mom. I didn't hear about it directly. My mom mentioned it casually while helping me clean the garage, sorting through Mark's things. She said, "You know, Carla's been checking in. She's worried about you. Said you seemed shut down." I froze with a box in my hands. What else did she say? Mom wiped dust from an old photo frame. Just that she's trying to reach out. That you're pushing everyone away. I stared at her. She told you that? She's concerned, honey. She said you yelled at her outside the school. That Daniel seemed scared. I dropped the box. It hit the floor with a dull thud and some papers scattered. Old tax forms, Mark's pay stubs, a birthday card I'd never seen before. I crouched down, my hands shaking. Mom, she came to the funeral and told people she was getting married. She made his death about her engagement. She showed up at my workplace with save the date cards, and now she's going behind my back to say I'm unstable? My mom looked surprised, but not disbelieving, just tired. She didn't tell me all that. Of course she didn't. There was a silence between us. Look, she said gently. I know Carla's a lot. She always has been. But she's your sister. That doesn't go away. I stood up slowly. It should. That night, I locked my phone in a drawer. I didn't want to read whatever came next. I could feel her circling, pushing harder, like she needed me to respond, even if it was with anger. The next morning, I got a call from Daniel's best friend's mom, Janelle. We'd done playdates and school projects together. Her voice was hesitant. Hey, I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but Carla messaged me. My stomach dropped. What? She found me on Facebook, said she was planning a surprise for you and needed help getting people together. She asked if I knew any of Mark's coworkers. What kind of surprise? She didn't say. Just that you were in a dark place and needed something to help you feel supported. Said she was planning a tribute or a video or... Janelle hesitated. Honestly, it felt weird. Like she was fishing. I thanked her and hung up. I went to the drawer, took out my phone, and opened the messages I'd been ignoring. There were over 20 unread texts. The last one, sent late the night before, just said, "You're making this so much harder than it needs to be." She wasn't grieving with me. She was performing around me. And now she was trying to rewrite the story. Frame me as unwell, unstable, too broken to understand love. She wanted control over how people saw this, saw me. That's when I realized. She wasn't just inserting herself into my life. She was trying to replace what I'd lost. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Just that the feeling wouldn't go away. That crawling sensation in my chest, like something was there, just beneath the surface, waiting to be confirmed. So I opened my laptop. I started with Mark's email. I hadn't touched it since the accident. It felt invasive at first, like I was snooping through something private, but he was gone. And it was the only place left I hadn't looked. There wasn't much, mostly receipts, work updates, shipping confirmations. His inbox was clean. He always kept it that way. I scrolled idly, then searched for her name. Carla. 26 results. A few were obvious. Old threads from years ago, group emails from our wedding plans, some RSVP coordination for Daniel's baby shower. Then strangely, a gap. Nothing from the last 2 years. And then suddenly, 6 messages. One thread starting about 3 months ago. Subject line, touching base. The first one was from Mark. October 1st, 7:12 p.m. Hi, Carla. Not sure what this is about, but I'm going to ask you again to please not contact me like this. I haven't said anything to Sarah because I don't want to make things worse. Between you two, but this has to stop. We're done here. Mark, I sat there, staring. My throat was dry. I scrolled up to find the original message that sparked the reply. It was gone. Deleted. Only his responses were saved in the thread. The next one was from him again, 2 days later. October 3rd, 9:19 a.m. I saw what you posted. Don't twist things around. You came to our house uninvited and crossed the line. I told you to leave. That's not being cold. That's setting a boundary. Please stop. I kept reading. Each message was shorter than the last. His tone, increasingly frustrated. He never cursed. Never insulted her. Just set hard, direct boundaries. The final one came only a week before he died. January 5th, 11:32 p.m. If you show up here again, I'm telling Sarah. This is your last warning. Leave me and my family alone. There was no reply visible from her, but she'd deleted her original emails anyway. Or maybe sent them from another account. My ears were ringing. I just sat there, numb. The room was quiet, except for Daniel's show playing faintly in the next room. Then I remembered something. Back in November, Mark had come home late one night, furious. I'd asked what happened and he'd just said, "Your sister showed up at the gym." That was it. He didn't want to talk about it, said she was just being weird, and he handled it. I thought he meant she was bothering him about Christmas plans or something. I never pressed. I didn't want to start a fight between them. But now I was starting to understand. I clicked over to his phone backups. He used a cloud service that auto-saved photos and texts. I'd never looked. There was a message thread with an unsaved number. No name. Just, unknown, 510. The messages went back months, scattered, unpredictable, but clear. You're cold when she's not looking. Why do you act like I'm a stranger? You think she loves you? She doesn't even know you. I didn't say anything last time, but I could. We had a moment. I know you felt it too. That one made me sit back in my chair. I felt like I was floating. I kept scrolling. Why are you pretending I don't exist? I was there when she was clueless. You talked to me. You said things. There were no replies. Just her. I knew it was her. I didn't need a name attached. Carla had been texting him from a separate number, hiding it, saying things like that, inserting herself, imagining closeness that wasn't real. Or worse, maybe trying to make it real. And he'd been keeping it from me. Protecting me? Maybe. Or just avoiding the explosion he knew it would cause. I felt sick, like I'd swallowed something sharp. He never told me. But he'd warned her. Over and over. Begged her to stop. And she didn't. She'd come to his funeral knowing all this, smiling at me, hugging my son, announcing her engagement like none of it had ever happened. And now I had the proof. I wasn't losing my mind. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't overreacting. She had tried to worm her way into my marriage, and Mark had pushed her away, repeatedly. She was never the victim in this. She was the threat. I didn't confront her right away. I thought I would. I thought I'd forward everything, every email, every text, and demand an explanation, scream at her over the phone, drive to her hotel, and throw her lies back in her face. But when it came down to it, I just sat there, for hours. I reread Mark's messages until they blurred. I tried to imagine what his face looked like when he wrote them. Tried to picture how uncomfortable, how angry he must have felt. How long he must have carried this by himself. He hadn't told me, not once, not even a hint. And I kept circling around the same question. Why? Not why Carla did it. I didn't need a reason for her anymore. But why he chose to shield me. Why he took all of it in silence. I'd always thought we told each other everything. But now I saw he'd made a different kind of choice. Maybe he was trying to keep things simple, peaceful. Maybe he was afraid I wouldn't believe him. Maybe he didn't want to risk me thinking less of her. Or maybe he just didn't want to put that weight on me. But it didn't matter anymore. Because now I had to carry it. All of it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind pushing against the window panes. Daniel was curled up in the blankets next to me. He'd been crawling into my bed every night since the funeral. I hadn't tried to stop him. The next morning, I dropped him off at school and drove to the hotel. I didn't call ahead. I didn't text. I parked and walked straight into the lobby with my jacket half zipped and my heart pounding in my ears. The woman at the front desk recognized me. Carla had used my last name for the reservation. She just went up, she said, glancing at the elevator. Do you want me to call? No, I said, already walking. Room 307. I knocked twice, then again harder. I could hear music playing faintly inside. Pop music. Something upbeat and hollow. When she opened the door, her face went from curious to smug in less than a second. Well, look who decided to. I need to talk to you. She blinked. Okay? Not here. Get your coat. Her eyes narrowed. What is this, some kind of intervention? No, just come with me. She hesitated. I could see her thinking about whether or not she could spin this into something public, something she could control. But eventually she grabbed her purse and followed. We didn't say anything in the elevator. We walked out into the parking lot. The air was cold, wet with melting snow. I know, I said, turning to her. She squinted. Know what? Everything. The emails, the messages, the visits, all of it. Her lips parted, then closed. Her face changed, tightened, just slightly. I don't know what you think you found. Don't, I snapped. Don't lie. Not even for a second. She crossed her arms. He never said no. I blinked. What? She looked down, then back up. He never said he didn't want me. He just said it was complicated, that he didn't want to hurt you. No. He said stop. Repeatedly. You only saw his replies. That's all I needed. She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. People say a lot of things when they're scared. My voice dropped. He was scared. Of you. Silence. And then she laughed. Soft, disbelieving. You've always hated that I take up space. What does that have to do with anything? You act like you're this moral compass, but you're just boring, safe, predictable. You think Mark didn't notice? I stepped forward. You tried to manipulate my husband. You came to our house. You sent him messages, and when he told you to stop, you turned it into some romantic fantasy. Her jaw clenched. He liked the attention. He just didn't want to admit it. He was married. Her expression flickered. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Then, he didn't tell you because you would have made it all about you. Something cracked in me. I buried him, and you used his funeral to talk about your engagement like none of this mattered. You used my grief to make yourself look shiny, and you thought you'd get away with it because I wouldn't push back. Because I never have. She didn't reply. I'm not keeping your secret, I said. I'm not protecting you, not anymore. Her eyes narrowed. You think anyone will believe you? You're grieving, you're unstable. I nodded slowly. And I have screenshots. Her face paled. I walked away. I didn't look back to see if she followed. I didn't need to. She'd finally shown me everything I needed to know. I thought exposing her would feel like winning something. I thought I'd feel powerful, or vindicated, or at least like I was finally in control of the story. But when I left that parking lot and drove home, all I felt was tired. My hands were shaking the whole way back. I sat in the driveway for 20 minutes before going inside. Daniel was on the living room floor building something with the Lego set Carla had given him. I didn't say anything about it. I just kissed the top of his head and told him he had 20 more minutes before dinner. That night, I sent the messages. Not to everyone, just to the few people who mattered. My mom, a close friend, Mark's brother Josh. I forwarded the emails and screenshots without commentary, just the evidence, raw and plain. I didn't want to explain. I didn't want to be talked out of my anger or told to be the bigger person. Within the hour, Josh called me. I let it ring the first time, but picked up when he tried again. He didn't say anything right away, just breathed into the phone. Then finally, "I'm sorry." I closed my eyes. "You didn't do anything." "No," he said. "But I had a feeling. A couple times when Carla was around, the way she talked to him, it made me uncomfortable. I didn't say anything. I should have." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. "You doing okay?" "No." He was quiet. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know," I said. "I just didn't want it to stay in the dark." My mom called later. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail saying we needed to talk, that she was processing, whatever that meant. I didn't listen to the whole thing. The next morning, Carla's fiancé, Mitch, messaged me. It was a long paragraph, sent through Facebook of all places. He said he'd seen the messages, said he hadn't known anything about it, that he felt lied to, used, and embarrassed. His language was stiff, like he was writing to a manager. "I didn't want to believe it," he wrote, "but it's clear now. Thank you for showing me." I didn't reply. By afternoon, Carla's engagement post was gone. Not just deleted, her whole account was. I checked twice. No trace. A few mutual friends texted me later asking what happened, saying Carla was off the grid, that they were worried. I didn't answer them either. The fallout wasn't dramatic. No huge public call-out, no confrontation at a family gathering. It was quieter than I expected. Just things unraveling. A slow, silent collapse. A week later, I got an email from the school's PTA coordinator. She said someone had emailed anonymously to express concern over my ability to focus at work, citing emotional instability and aggressive behavior during a recent family loss. I knew it was her. I forwarded the message and every piece of proof I had to the principal. I included a short note saying that I was being targeted by a family member with a documented history of harassment. He called me the next day and told me not to worry, everything would be formally documented and flagged. That was the first real consequence. And it wasn't just hers, it was mine too. I had to start protecting myself in ways I'd never had to before. I had to let people see that something ugly had happened, that I wasn't going to play nice or smooth things over, that I was willing to say what had been done to me, and to Mark, even if it made them uncomfortable. And some people pulled away, quietly, without drama. A couple old friends who were always closer to Carla stopped replying. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years posted something vague online about family drama and keeping private matters private. I didn't engage, but the people who mattered stayed. My friend Leah came over with dinner 3 nights in a row. Josh checked in every morning by text. Even my mom, despite her silence, started dropping off groceries and leaving them on the porch. Carla never contacted me again. Didn't expect her to. Not after what I'd taken away from her. Not just the illusion of closeness to Mark, but the one thing she valued more than anything else. Her image. And as for the wedding, it never happened. I found out through someone else, weeks later. Mitch had moved out of their shared apartment. The venue was cancelled. No new date set. It didn't make me happy, but it made things real. The house felt quieter after everything, but not in a peaceful way. More like the kind of quiet after a fire's gone out, just the hollow left behind. The days passed with this steady, unreal stillness. Even Daniel seemed to sense the shift. He stopped asking about Carla. He didn't mention the wedding again, or the Lego set, or anything connected to her. I had trouble getting out of bed some mornings. Not from sadness exactly, just exhaustion. That kind of emotional heaviness that makes even simple things feel like too much. Dishes piled up. I forgot to check the mail for a week. I'd stand in the shower with the water running and realize I hadn't moved in 10 minutes. I thought maybe things would start to feel better after exposing her, that putting it all out there would bring relief, or closure, or whatever word people like to use. But it didn't. If anything, it made everything sharper. I saw Mark everywhere in the house. In the way the couch cushions slumped where he used to sit. In the chipped paint on the stair rail where he used to rest his hand. In the half-full bottle of his shampoo that I couldn't throw out. And now there was this added weight, knowing what he carried before he died. Knowing he had been uncomfortable, maybe even afraid, and still never told me. I kept replaying that over and over. Him sitting on that information, trying to keep the peace, not realizing what it would do to me later. It changed the way I saw him. Not in a cruel way, not like I blamed him. But it cracked something open, something raw I hadn't felt yet. Grief layered with disappointment. With confusion. With anger I didn't want to admit. Sometimes I hated her for taking that from me. The version of him I thought I knew. For corrupting those last few months. For planting herself like a weed in the middle of everything we'd built. And sometimes in the quietest moments, I hated him just a little too. For not trusting me. For thinking he had to handle her alone. For protecting her from me more than he protected me from her. I didn't tell anyone that part. Not even Leah. I knew how it would sound. Instead, I started seeing a therapist. I didn't go because of Carla. I went because I couldn't sleep through the night anymore without waking up covered in sweat, heart racing, as if I'd just run from something. I'd lie there in the dark, trying not to cry too loud. I didn't want to wake Daniel. The therapist was gentle. She asked about Mark, about the accident, and eventually about Carla. I told her everything, one piece at a time. I watched her face closely, looking for judgment. There wasn't any. She said something once that stuck with me. Survival isn't just about getting through trauma, it's about unlearning who you had to be to keep the peace. That's what I'd done for years with Carla. Kept the peace, smoothed things over, let things go, let her go, again and again, with no consequences. Mark had done the same thing, and it destroyed something in both of us. About 3 months after the funeral, I found a letter in Mark's closet. It was folded into the back of an old notebook I hadn't touched since we moved in. It wasn't addressed, not signed, but it was written in his handwriting, not perfect, rushed, messy, a page and a half. The first line read, "If you're reading this, I didn't know how to say it out loud." I sat on the floor with the letter in my lap, legs crossed like a kid, reading it over and over. It wasn't a love letter. Not exactly. It was more like a confession. He said he was sorry, not for anything specific. Just sorry he hadn't told me everything. He wrote that he knew how I saw Carla, and he didn't want to make me feel like she'd won. He didn't want to be the thing that made us fall apart. He wrote, "You already gave up so much to keep peace in this family. I didn't want to be another thing you had to fix." It broke me. I sat there for an hour crying into my sleeves. It was the first time since the funeral I cried like that. Loud, messy, chest-heaving sobs that didn't stop until I had nothing left in me. Afterward, I folded the letter up carefully and put it in the drawer next to my bed. Not for closure. Not for answers. Just to have something real. Something that hadn't been twisted. Something that was his. The decision didn't come all at once. It built slowly, like steam behind a closed door. At first I thought I could just keep going, just avoid Carla forever, stay silent and let the dust settle. But the more time passed, the clearer it became. She would find a way back. She always did. And even if she didn't, the space she occupied in my life, past and present, was still too large, too loud, too full of unresolved rot. So I made the decision. I wasn't going to forgive her, and I wasn't going to speak to her again. Not because I needed her to hurt, but because I needed to be done. With the pretending, the keeping quiet, the trying to keep the peace at my own expense. I was done making room for someone who treated love like a spotlight and pain like a stage. So I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and wrote the last message I'd ever sent her. I kept it short. "Carla, I don't want you in my life anymore. Not in pieces, not in shadows, not through other people. We are done. This is permanent. You crossed a boundary I will never come back from. And the fact that you still tried to manipulate what came after says everything. Do not contact me again. Do not contact Daniel. If you try to involve our mother, my friends, or my work again, I will consider it harassment. This is not a threat, it's a boundary, one I'm finally enforcing. Goodbye." I didn't sign it with love. I didn't sign it at all. I hit send, then blocked her number, her email, and every account I knew she had. I changed my privacy settings, took her off Daniel's emergency contacts at school. I even called the front desk at his summer camp to make sure they knew she was never allowed to pick him up. I didn't need her to understand. I just needed her to disappear. And in the silence that followed, something settled inside me. Not peace exactly, but stillness. A kind of relief. Like I'd put something heavy down after carrying it for too long. I started cleaning out the house in a more serious way. Not just Mark's things, but mine too. Old drawers. Bins full of cards and letters I hadn't read in years. I threw out the boxes I'd been keeping out of guilt. Out of, maybe someday. I let go of the idea that I needed to hold on to everything just to prove it mattered. I kept a few things of his. A hoodie he used to wear when he grilled. The watch he wore on our first date. His handwriting on a grocery list I found stuck behind the fridge. I packed those carefully, like a small museum just for me. Everything else, I let go. Daniel asked about Carla once more, weeks later. It was quiet, offhand. "Is she mad at us?" I paused. "No. She just made some choices that mean we're not going to see her anymore." He thought about that, then nodded. "Okay." We didn't talk about it again. Instead, we started building something else. New routines. Just the two of us. I took him to the lake one Saturday, just like we used to with Mark. I packed sandwiches and juice boxes and let him throw rocks into the water until the sun started to go down. When he got tired, he leaned against me and whispered, "I miss him." "I do too," I said. We sat like that for a while, not saying anything else. Just breathing. Just being. Later that night, after I put him to bed, I stood in the doorway and watched him sleep. His face was still so small, so round. But his hands looked older somehow. Stronger. Like he was becoming someone new. Slowly, without even noticing. And so was I. The decision didn't come all at once. It built slowly, like steam behind a closed door. At first, I thought I could just keep going. Just avoid Carla forever. Stay silent and let the dust settle. But the more time passed, the clearer it became. She would find a way back. She always did. And even if she didn't, the space she occupied in my life, past and present, was still too large, too loud, too full of unresolved rot. So I made the decision. I wasn't going to forgive her. And I wasn't going to speak to her again. Not because I needed her to hurt, but because I needed to be done. With the pretending, the keeping quiet, the trying to keep the peace at my own expense. I was done making room for someone who treated love like a spotlight and pain like a stage. So I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and wrote the last message I'd ever sent her. I kept it short. "Carla, I don't want you in my life anymore. Not in pieces, not in shadows, not through other people. We are done. This is permanent. You crossed a boundary I will never come back from. And the fact that you still tried to manipulate what came after says everything. Do not contact me again. Do not contact Daniel. If you try to involve our mother, my friends, or my work again, I will consider it harassment. This is not a threat. It's a boundary. One I'm finally enforcing. Goodbye. I didn't sign it with love. I didn't sign it at all. I hit send, then blocked her number, her email, and every account I knew she had. I changed my privacy settings, took her off Daniel's emergency contacts at school. I even called the front desk at his summer camp to make sure they knew she was never allowed to pick him up. I didn't need her to understand. I just needed her to disappear. And in the silence that followed, something settled inside me. Not peace exactly, but stillness. A kind of relief. Like I'd put something heavy down after carrying it for too long. I started cleaning out the house in a more serious way. Not just Mark's things, but mine too. Old drawers, bins full of cards and letters I hadn't read in years. I threw out the boxes I'd been keeping out of guilt, out of maybe someday. I let go of the idea that I needed to hold on to everything just to prove it mattered. I kept a few things of his. A hoodie he used to wear when he grilled. The watch he wore on our first date. His handwriting on a grocery list I found stuck behind the fridge. I packed those carefully, like a small museum just for me. Everything else, I let go. Daniel asked about Carla once more, weeks later. It was quiet, offhand. Is she mad at us? I paused. No, she just made some choices that mean we're not going to see her anymore. He thought about that, then nodded. Okay. We didn't talk about it again. Instead, we started building something else. New routines. Just the two of us. I took him to the lake one Saturday, just like we used to with Mark. I packed sandwiches and juice boxes and let him throw rocks into the water until the sun started to go down. When he got tired, he leaned against me and whispered, I miss him. I do too, I said. We sat like that for a while, not saying anything else. Just breathing. Just being. Later that night, after I put him to bed, I stood in the doorway and watched him sleep. His face was still so small, so round. But his hands looked older somehow. Stronger. Like he was becoming someone new, slowly, without even noticing. And so was I. Next, my sister announced her engagement at my husband's funeral part 10. The first anniversary of Mark's death came on a Sunday. I didn't plan anything special. I didn't post online. I didn't light a candle or play any particular song. I just woke up early, made pancakes the way he used to, and let the day be quiet. Daniel sat at the table wearing Mark's old team hoodie, his feet still not touching the floor. He asked if we could go to the park after breakfast. We did. I thought the grief would come crashing back all at once. But it didn't. It came in slow, gentle waves. A memory here. A phrase he used to say. The way he'd laugh under his breath when Daniel said something ridiculous. I thought about the look on his face the first time we brought Daniel home from the hospital. How he whispered, "We're parents." Like he couldn't believe it. That night after Daniel was asleep, I took out the letter again. The one I'd found folded in the back of the notebook. I didn't read it every day. Just when I needed to remember that he hadn't been perfect. But he'd tried. That he'd loved me in the middle of something messy. That he chose me, again and again, even when it cost him. I didn't cry this time. I just sat with it. Let it be what it was. Later, I took my wedding ring off for the first time since the accident. I didn't put it away forever. I just didn't want it on my hand anymore. Not because I didn't love him, but because I finally knew how to carry that love without needing to wear it like armor. I started sleeping better after that. Spring came slowly. The snow melted in patches. The yard turned soft again. I let Daniel dig holes and build muddy fortresses without stopping him. We planted small things, carrots, herbs, a few flowers that never grew quite right. It didn't matter. He liked watering them every day, said he could hear them trying really hard. I didn't hear from Carla, not through our mother, not from mutual friends. It was like she'd been wiped from my life. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I owed her anything. Not an update, not an explanation, not forgiveness. I didn't need her to understand what she'd done. I didn't need her to feel sorry or admit anything. What I needed was to stop making space for people who chipped away at me and called it love. Some people don't get to come back. That was the truth. I started dating again that summer, quietly, cautiously. Coffee, walks, movies I didn't tell anyone about. I didn't bring them home, not yet. I wasn't looking to fill a space, just to learn what I liked again, what I wanted, what it felt like to laugh without guilt. One night, I stood in the hallway outside Daniel's room, listening to him talk to himself while building a spaceship. I heard him say, "And this part's for Dad, he gets the cool chair." It didn't shatter me, it warmed something in my chest. Mark was still here, just in a different way. So was I. A little older, a little harder, but also, finally, free.